All right, teachers, we're coming to the end of the term. It's gone pretty fast, and I just wanted to remind you of a few things before we end this semester. The first of all is closing dates for your class. If your class is closing, like you're done with the term before the 19th of December, please let me know so that I can readjust the days that you need to mark attendance in WISE. Some of you have already done that, but if you haven't, please let me know so that I can fix that in WISE. The other is the date that classes absolutely need to be closed. So the 19th of December is the last day of the term for most classes and also for what is set up in WISE. So if you're ending early, you have a little bit of time, but the sooner the better, because if you drag it out, then sometimes you forget and you don't go back and do it. But please make sure that your classes are closed out by Sunday, 19, 20, 21, the 21st of December, by the end of the day, so that when I come in on Monday, I can work, close out all the classes and close the term. If you have students who are like, oh, I need to do makeup, just tell them to do the makeup. I'm going to be closing out the class. As soon as I do, we can go back to their individual transcripts and fix, add that in once they've completed it. But please do not hold out closing your classes because one student tells you they have makeup, because they may actually do it, but 9 times out of 10, usually it doesn't get done. So I'm not going to wait for them. We'll close out the class and we can always change it with their transcript. If your students have not marked their reading, though, please make sure that you have them go in and mark their reading by the time you close out classes at the end of the term, because it's a lot easier to go in as a class and go mark all attendance and have that completely done as a class than it is for me to go back in later to every single individual transcript and fix their reading once the term is closed out. So please, please make sure that your students have completed their reading by the time you're done with classes, or that they've marked their reading, I should say. Finally, please get your reimbursements in by the 15th of December. If you straggle in on the 16th or 17th, maybe, but in order for it to come out of this year's budget and to go through, get, processed before the end of the year and our budget year, it needs to be in by the 15th of December. So if you haven't already sent one to me, please send it to me soon. I have sent out emails with the reimbursement forms on them. But also, if you go to the seminary website, on the church website, you can find stake teacher resources, and the reimbursement forms are in that link as well. So if you have any other questions or you need specific help with closing out the term, please refer back to the October virtual training that's posted on Brother Anderson's YouTube page, because there I go through very detailed instructions on how to close out your classes. Start at 1 minute and 55 seconds because the beginning didn't get edited out. So start there, and I go through all the steps to close out your classes. If you have any questions, if you need any help, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. Again, unfortunately, my texts don't work on the number that I have for right now, but please feel free to call me or send me an email, and I'd be happy to help you with that. Thanks. I hope you guys have a great end to your term and a very happy holidays.
Hey, teachers. We're coming down to the end. I didn't want to do anything regarding next school year too early, because I know you're trying to wrap up things, and I just didn't want to distract you from kind of finishing this semester. But I've gotten enough requests from some of you looking forward to next semester, that I felt like this is probably the right time to bring this in and to talk about this. So yes, I do have a pacing guide. So let me just show you really quick what that looks like, so that here we go. So that you're aware this is what's happening. Okay. So it's going to look pretty similar to last year's, I did, instead of just having links, I have these buttons, but they work the same way. You click on them, they're going to take you to the individual kind of areas in the manual. So across the top, you have doctrinal mastery review activities, assess your learning activities for life prep. You've got the two assess your learning makeups, right? There's the makeup, and then there's assess your learning part 1 and part 2. So this is for those who aren't in class when you do any of the assess your learning. So these are the ones you pull up and you send them home with the student to do at home. And then ideas for variety. So you've got those buttons right at the top of the pacing guide. As was the case last year, you'll see in this far left column, the Come Follow Me column, there's going to be some information. If you want to jump to Come Follow Me, this will take you right to the manual that they'll see at home and at church to give you an overview of what's happening. I also have, if there's an individual, like sometimes in the curriculum, there was an extra little bit of learning for you as a teacher. And there is one for this first week. It's just thoughts to keep in mind, reading the Old Testament. And actually, this is really great. These will give you little moments of context or additional information. This one specifically is going to teach you a little bit about Christ in the Old Testament. The idea of, I believe it's going to talk a little bit about books in the Old Testament and biblical, what do we call that? Genre is what we typically use. So you're aware that some books of scripture are going to have different emphasis. And anyway, you'll see those occasionally throughout on the left-hand side. And then as always, there's going to be a curriculum week review. So for example, our first week coming back, starting in Abraham 3, there's going to be a curriculum week review. And you click on this and it'll tell you in the seminary teacher's manual, here's what we're going to try to do this week with these lessons. It'll give you the lesson purpose and some ideas for student preparation and some videos that are attached, but it just gives you a good peek at what's happening as you are preparing for the week's lessons. And then it jumps right in. Same thing as last year. The red buttons are going to tell you it's a doctrinal mastery. The white buttons are just a regular scripture lesson. I'm going to call those Come Follow Me lessons. They're just going to talk about the scripture. And yellow buttons are going to be life preparation lessons. And then when there is a green button, that is going to be an assess your learning. And that doesn't happen until, the second week of February as you get your first assess your learning. Similar kind of advice as we did before. Don't skip doctrinal mastery practice lessons. Like make sure you give Abraham 3 and Moses 1, 27 through 42. Make sure that those have priority in the week. Life preparations also need priority, and assess your learnings. Your students need to participate in at least one of these per semester. So make sure that you're keeping good attendance. And if they were present for that lesson, then you can mark that in WISE 2 as having done the assessment. And that way you can kind of keep track of who still needs to do it as you go throughout the year. So just as a reminder, that's how this works. As is the case in the past, I do have PowerPoints. It will always take you to a Google slide document as long as it's not too big, right? The Google slide document is going to always kind of change. It's always going to change the formatting a little bit because this is just the easiest way to transfer. It's the easiest way to transfer files around without having to do anything. If you click on the link, you'll have two choices. So on this one, you can either just use the slide, but it's always a little bit janky, or you can go here to the file. You can go to download and then download it into a PowerPoint. Okay. And once it's downloaded into a PowerPoint, it's downloaded onto your computer. And now I've got this and it's not janky anymore. The files, the transitions are going to be good. The format's going to be fine. I do want to point this out. This is a slide that hasn't been present in the past. It's at the first of every single PowerPoint. And basically, it's just helping you understand as a teacher. If you are only ever teaching PowerPoints and you're not teaching students, we call that death by PowerPoint. So To avoid death by PowerPoint. And then here are 8 principles that can help you. Some best practices to keep in mind when you're using PowerPoints as part of your teaching. I am never going to tell you thou shalt use PowerPoint to teach. Please use the curriculum. Please use the scriptures. Please follow the words of living prophets. The PowerPoints are a tool. They are not the only way you can do this. But if you use it, please follow these. You don't have time for every slide. They're going to give you a lot of information in these slides. So you need to, in your preparation, read the scriptures, then look at the curriculum and start thinking about your class. Then go to the PowerPoint and start hiding the slides that you're not going to use because you won't have time or you don't think it's going to be relevant for your students, like whatever it is, and get to the point where you don't have time to use every single slide. Use the curriculum to determine which slides will be most effective for your students. The hidden slides are teaching instruction, not displayed. So for example, this slide, if you notice here off to the side, it's got this like circle with a line through it. They're not going to see this slide. Okay. If you look down the side, here's another one that's going to tell you, here's some things for you to pay attention to. Your students aren't going to see this. That's just for you. Okay. Variety. You got to use a variety of teaching methods. You can't just sit there and click slide to slide and teach the slide. The Spirit's going to teach them, not your slides, right? You are the Lord's instrument. This is for you to use to help with that. Use principles of adapt and adopt, ideas for variety, and right, there's just some good things. So I just wanted you to see this, okay? If I were to go back to this, some of these PowerPoints, I'm just curious if there's going to show one that's too big. But some of these, maybe this one right here, some of these PowerPoints are too big because they have attached videos and it makes it too big. If you see this screen, what that means is you're going to hit download. It's going to say, listen, I can't verify. Trust me, this is done by somebody at church office. So download anyway. When that's done, so you can actually see, this is a big file, which means it's going to download the videos. This is for those of you who have dicey internet. That's why this is so great, because you don't have to worry about having access to a video. Let's see if there's a video in here. It's probably this one. But this is going to be the video of Moses having his experience with Satan. You don't have to stream it. It's downloaded into this PowerPoint. So for you as a teacher, that's just one less thing you have to worry about. For those of us who struggle sometimes with getting the technology to work when we're doing stuff, that's why that's great, because it's actually embedded in your PowerPoint. So hopefully that's clear as mud. If you have questions or concerns about any of this, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. The other thing I just need you to understand, I put this together as if everybody has 5 days. That's how the curriculum shows it. I understand that a lot of you, most of you, only teach 4 days. You need to have a discussion. If you're teaching with a team teacher or if you're teaching by yourself, have the discussion with yourself or have your discussion with your team teacher. Identify which lessons you can teach, that you want to, that are effective for your class, and make some decisions about the ones that you will not teach. If you feel especially skilled, you can try to combine them. But I always tell you, your job is not to cover material. And combining classes can sometimes turn into, I got to cover this. And you're zipping through a PowerPoint because you want to try to cover material. Sometimes it's just better to just go, you know what? We're not going to do on this week. We're not going to cover Moses 7:53 through 69. We're just not going to teach that class. So I'm going to do these 4 instead. Okay. So make that decision, be intentional, prayerful. You know your students, pay attention to what the Spirit tells you. The other thing I'm going to tell you, I got a lot of feedback from last year about the life prep lessons. I followed almost to the T the instructions on where to place those in the pacing calendar, which meant that sometimes we would have 2 life prep lessons about the temple, for example, and then we'd have 3, scripture lessons also about the temple. And the feedback I got was it felt like it was super redundant that week. It was like, oh, we're going to talk about the temple again. And here's another thing about the temple. And it just felt like it was a little too much. I didn't do that this time. Instead, I tried to have thematic life prep lessons happening together. So we're going to have here missionary life prep lessons are all going to kind of happen here. And they're not always going to associate with the scripture lessons. It's just going to be, hey, life prep, we're going to talk about missionary work for the next month. Doesn't really fit necessarily, but they don't have to. These are a different kind of lessons. They're still scripture based, but they're not going to be necessarily, hey, Moses 7 is definitely going to be a missionary lesson. It could, but that's not why I put it there. I put all life prep lessons that seem to fit topically. I put them together and just kind of went through. So hopefully, obviously, we're going to have some Genesis lessons that talk about the temple, but you're going to have life prep lessons at a different time of the year that also talk about the temple. So I'm hoping that just lets us approach a topic at multiple times at multiple places throughout the year. All right, that was a lot of information. If you need specific instruction or you want me to explain any of this, please feel free to reach out to me. If you ever get to a point where one of these buttons has a link that seems to be corrupted or broken, let me know so I can fix it so that it fixes it for everybody. Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it. Take some time after you're done with your seminary class and take a look at the pacing. And if you have some real specific questions or concerns, let me know. Again, if I can make an adjustment, I will, and everybody will be benefited from that. So that's my virtual training at the end of the year. We look forward to gathering in January for our seminary teacher conference. Please put that on your calendar. It's really good to gather and just be together and share experiences, maybe even commiserate a little bit, because this can be a difficult calling, and testify of the good work. It's just good to gather. But we also want to talk about Old Testament. We want to give us a kind of a good look and an approach. It's fun to be students again. So come and be a student, and bring your seminary teaching colleague who maybe doesn't always come to trainings or watch the videos. Bring them so that we can experience that. And as always, we bring food, and we get you breakfast, and we have a good lunch, and it's good to socialize. So plan on that. I believe it's the second weekend in January. Okay. All right. I love you guys, and I'll see you when I see you.